Jaya, all glories. Sri Madhava Puri, under Madhavendra Puri. Krishna Prema Pura, a storehouse of all love of Godhead. Bhaktika Pada Rura, of the desire tree of devotional service. Tenho, he is Pratama. He is Pranama, first. Ankura, fructified. Translation before, by his divine grace is he Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. All glories to Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is a desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. For Sri Madhavendra Puri is also known as Sri Madhava Puri, belonged to the disciplic succession from Madhvacharya and was a greatly celebrated sannyasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the third disciplic descendant from Sri Madhavendra Puri. The process of worship in the disciplic succession of Madhvacharya was full of ritualistic ceremonies with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first person in that disciplic succession to exhibit the symptoms of love of Godhead, and the first to write a poem beginning with the words Ai Dina Daya Dra Natha, a supremely merciful personality of Godhead. In that poetry is the seed of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cultivation of love of Godhead. Madhavendra Puri. Actually, we just celebrated his appearance day recently. Actually, what happened is after taking sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, instead of going to Vrindavan, he went to Jagannath Puri. And on the way, he performed, wonderful kirtan, and he stopped at many holy places. So one day he came to this place in Orissa called Ramuna. And in that famous place is a very famous temple and very famous deity called Gopinath. And Lord Chaitanya, when he offered his obeisances to Gopinath, it's like a helmet of flowers just fell from the deity's head and just landed on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's head. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when that happened, his heart just became just filled with just ecstatic love for Krishna. And he began this beautiful kirtan, dancing, chanting. All the people were gathering around, watching him, and he was exhibiting all the ecstatic symptoms. So this Gopinath temple is very famous actually for this special kheer, Gopinath kheer. Every night they offer 12 pots of this beautiful kheer to the deities, and it's very famous, celebrated. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wanted to actually taste that beautiful kheer, And so he was waiting. They were chanting, and he was waiting for that Mahaprasadam to be distributed, I suppose. So he began narrating the story about Madhavendra Puri at that time, which he'd heard. He'd actually heard this whole story of Madhavendra Puri from his spiritual master, Ishvara Puri. So as I said here, Madhavendra Puri, he was also known as Madhva Puri. He belonged to the disciplic session of Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya, one of his most beloved disciples was Ishvara Puri, who became the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's explained here that Madhavendra Puri appeared, he took initiation from Madhavendra Puri appeared, he took initiation from the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. And this whole understanding of conjugal loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna and the awakening of this rasa within one's own heart had never appeared in that sampradaya, as mentioned. They were just fully engaged in, the ritualistic performances of deity worship, but it was Madhavendra Puri who actually revealed it to the world. He was actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was exhibiting this incredible mood, this rasa, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we know, he accepted the complexion and the mood of Srimati Radharani, and he was trying to understand and experience her love for him in her divine separation from him. And Madhavendra Puri was also experiencing this. It's said to be this mood of separation from Krishna is said to be the topmost devotional condition. And it's actually, it's exhibited by those devotees who have the highest qualifications. Like the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, also Madhavendra Puri here. And it's said that this devotional condition is actually bestowed upon these special devotees by Krishna himself. And it's just, when you read about it, it's incredible actually. It's just this whole mood of separation from Krishna. It's like the mood of people in normal society when they feel separation from their loved ones, where they're feeling this incredible distress and, pain and sorrow and lamentation. Although they manifest these symptoms internally, they're experiencing incredible ecstasy. It's like, it is said that, when you just see Krishna in one place, when you see him, but when this mood of separation, wherever they look, they're just seeing Krishna. And the external world basically just ceases to exist, and all their emotions, they just become internalized. So, it is said, the Vaishnavas in their Gaudiya Madhava Sampradaya, they say that the ecstatic feelings exhibited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came from Madhavendra Puri through his disciple Ishvara Puri, who became the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we know that story, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was 17 years old, his father died. So he went to Gaya to perform the funeral ceremony for his father. And when he was there, he met Ishvara Puri, and he begged to take initiation from him, because Ishvara Puri, he was so humble, and he was saying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're such a great famous scholar, how I'm just a nobody. How can I give you initiation? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very insistent, and Ishvara Puri finally relented, and he gave him initiation. And after initiation, Ishvara Puri, he came and repeated the Hare Krishna mantra into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ear. And hearing that Hare Krishna Maha mantra, Lord Chaitanya, suddenly he changed. He changed from his normal Nimai Pandit, the very sober Brahmana scholar of Navadvip with his school of 1,000 students. His heart was just filled with just so much bliss in his heart. He was just exhibiting all these ecstatics, and he was crying, rolling on the ground, hair standing on end, started trembling. He just began manifesting these extreme loving sentiments for Krishna. Then he went to the local temple and began chanting and dancing, just oblivious to everyone around him. So this was not his normal behavior up to this point. And then, of course, after that time, he came back to his guru, Ishvara Puri. And he said in a voice like choked with emotion, tears flowing from his eyes, he said to his spiritual master as he bowed down, "By your mercy I have obtained the goal of life. My materialistic life is gone, and now my heart is just filled with love for Krishna." So we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's playing the part of a pure devotee and acharya and teacher. He's teaching about the importance of accepting a spiritual master. How important it is. Of course, all the people of Navadvip at that time, they were just completely bewildered. What's happening in my Pandit? And some people were saying, maybe he got possessed by a ghost. Or maybe these ladies were coming to Mother Sachi and saying, "We think your son's being haunted by a ghost. He's just doing crazy. He's doing all these rolling on the ground, crying and laughing and jumping around. We should get some special oil and rub it on his head, try and cool his brain or something, This very sober Brahmana scholar, the great master of Sanskrit, with 1,000 students, very sober. He just, suddenly, what's happened to him? He's just a completely different person. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could understand, everyone's thinking, bewildered, what's happened to me? And so he called a meeting for all the people and the devotees. And he told them, when I met my spiritual master, my whole life has now changed. And, then he told them the story, actually, when he was coming back from Gaya. He went to this holy place, and he was just sitting there chanting. And then he said that in a distance, I saw this cowherd boy. And there's something about this cowherd boy. My heart was so attracted. My mind was so attracted to this cowherd boy I saw in the distance. And I was thinking, who is this boy? And then suddenly, he started coming closer to me. He started coming from the distance. He started moving towards me. And I was thinking, who is this boy? And I noticed he was playing, beautiful melodies on his flute. And he had the peacock feather, he had the Kastuba gem around his... And he was thinking, my God, surely this is Krishna. Surely this is... And then he started coming closer and closer, and my hair was standing on end. My tears were just coming from my eyes. And then he came closer and closer, and he was smiling at me and playing these beautiful melodic tunes on his flute. And he was just smiling at me, and I was just feeling all this incredible feelings in my heart. And then he came right up to me, and he put his arms around me and embraced me. And I was just feeling so much love. I cannot even begin to express it or describe it. And then all of a sudden he started moving away from me. And I started running after him, but after a while he just disappeared. And I just fell down on the ground, and I was just crying. I had Krishna, and now I've lost him. And now I'm just feeling so much separation from him. I can only think of him. So so this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's got this mood of Radharani's separation. When Krishna left Vrindavan, he went to Mathura, and then he went to Dwarka. He was separated from Radharani and the Brajvasis for 100 years. And Prabhupada mentions actually in regards to this, that the only business of Radharani and the gopis, Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, all the cowherd boys, the cows, was simply to think of Krishna and cry. In this way they actually experienced Krishna's presence so more perfectly and so completely, and they just felt Krishna's presence even more so than when he was personally there. Of course, Krishna was always there, but he never leaves Vrindavan. He can never leave Vrindavan because of the love of his devotees there. But he just appeared to be not there at that time. Yeah, so Madhavendra Puri, he was a very special devotee. You know, one time, he was, he had so many different famous pastimes in Madhavendra Puri. He was just, he was just floating in love for Krishna. It actually said that he was, it was like he was just drunk in love for Krishna. And sometimes he didn't know whether he was standing up or whether he was lying down or sitting, or he didn't know whether it was night or day, or whether he was in the right proper place or he wasn't in the proper place, and sometimes he even forgot who he was. You know, sometimes when people fall in love, they become a little bit kind of dreamy, in the material world. They become a bit dreamy, and but this is just like love beyond what we know it in the material world. This love for Krishna. Sometimes he didn't imagine that. Sometimes he forgot who he actually was. And sometimes, when he saw a dark rain cloud, he would just like fall unconscious. Just dark rain cloud. Thinking, reminding him of Krishna. So he was just swimming in this ocean of love for Krishna. And actually there's famous stories about Madhavendra. Like one day he went to Vrindavan, and when he saw Govardhan Hill, we know which was non-different to the body of Krishna, he was just maddened with transcendental love. And after circumambulating that hill, he went to this Govinda Kund. Govinda Kund is a place where, after Krishna put down Govardhan Hill, Lord Indra, realizing his offense, he came before Krishna and he bowed down and he presented himself as the most pretentious fool, He himself was thinking that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He became puffed up with his position as the Lord of the heaven, King of the heavens, heavenly planets. So Krishna, to knock down his mountain of pride, he performed this pastime, so lifting Govardhan Hill. So this is that Govinda Kund is the place where he came and offered prayers to Krishna and forgiveness. And he performed a very nice abhishek there to Krishna, Krishna's lotus feet. And Madhavendra Puri, he went there and he took his bath in Radhakund, and then he sat beneath this tree to take his rest. And suddenly, this cowherd boy from the local village came with a pot of milk, and he just put it down before Madhavendra Puri. And while smiling, he said to Madhavendra Puri, "Please drink this milk which I brought for you." He was asking him, most mendicants, they beg. They beg because that's how they survive. They don't have anything. They just carry a little pot, little begging bowl, and they go around and people give them food. And but you don't do any. You don't beg. And Madhavendra Puri was just if someone brought him food, he would accept it. If no one brought him food, he'd just fast. And, he just, this cowherd boy was asking him, what type of meditation do you perform? Madhavendra Puri was just looking at this cowherd boy, and he was just, suddenly he just became really satisfied. He didn't know who this boy was, but, he forgot about his hunger, he forgot about his thirst, and, he was just sitting there, and this cowherd boy was there, and the cowherd boy said to him, why don't you, because Madhavendra Puri said to him, who are you? Who are you? Where do you reside? How do you know I was fasting? And the little cowherd boy said, Sir, I am a cowherd boy, and I reside in this village. In my village, no one fasts. If a person begs for food, they always get the food. But if a person does not ask for any food, I supply them his edibles. But now I must go and milk the cows, so I'm going to leave this pot here. After you drink the milk, I'll come back later and I'll collect this pot, the empty pot. But the boy never came back. The pot was just sitting there. So Madhavendra Puri, he just sat underneath the tree there after drinking the milk, and he was just chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. And then at night, he was just chanting throughout the day. And then at night, he just kind of dozed off a bit. Then in a dream, that same little cowherd boy came to him and took him by the hand and took him into the jungle and took him to this bush in the jungle, and he said, I actually reside in this bush. And because I reside in this bush, I suffer. I suffer the cold, the heat, the rain, the wind. Terrible. Now please bring people from the village and take me out of this bush and take me to the top of the hill. And I want you to construct a temple there for me on the hill and install me in that temple and then bathe me, wash me. Because I've been here for like so many years. I'm all dusty and covered with dirt. I want you to bathe me with many, many pots of cold, cooling water. And then the little cowherd boy said to him, I've been observing you. I've been watching you. And I've been wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come to serve me? My name is Gopal. I'm actually the lifter of Govardhan Hill. And during the Mohammedan invasion to Pajari, he came here and he hid me in this bush, and then he ran away. Actually, Prabhupada used this example in one lecture. He said that, Krishna, in his archer incarnation, he becomes malleable and dependent on the devotee service, which means if someone doesn't turn up to cook the offering, Krishna gets hungry. He misses out on the meal. And Prabhupada said, that Krishna actually, when you really develop this mood of wanting to please Krishna in your service to him, that Krishna in his archer incarnation in the deity form will also be wondering, when will, Shastra be coming to serve me? Or when will, Padma be coming to cook my offering? Krishna actually starts feeling like that. He starts, Prabhupada was saying this in this lecture. So after a while, Madhavendra Puri woke up. He began considering this dream. And then he began to lament. He was thinking, Krishna was actually here. That cowherd boy was actually Krishna directly. And I couldn't even recognize him. Then he fell down on the ground in ecstatic love and he began crying tears of love. He was just, but soon after, he came out of this ecstatic emotional state and he just fixed his mind on Gopal's order. And he took bath, he entered the village, he assembled many people together and explained to them the whole situation. So then with great pleasure, all the people, a number of people, they gathered together and they went in there, they cut down the jungles, they cut away all the bush. Then they saw, revealed there, this beautiful Gopal deity, and they were just struck with wonder. And it said the deity was actually really heavy. So they got all the strong men there to carry the deity to the top of the hill, and they had a big stone there, put there as a throne. Then the Brahmanas, under Madhavendra Puri's instruction, they brought they brought 900 pots of cold, cool water from this Govinda Kund, and they bathed Gopal. And there was this huge kirtan going on, people were chanting and dancing, and people from not just a local village, but many, many villages. They brought milk and yogurt and ghee, and they brought all these preparations, like a huge feast. And there was this huge ceremony of Gopal's installation took place, and Madhavendra Puri, he orchestrated the Abhishek ceremony. Then Gopal was dressed in nice fine new garments and garlands adorned with sandalwood pulp and jewellery which was brought from the local villages. Then a huge feast was offered to Gopal, and then after that distributed amongst all the people. And all the Brahmanas that were present there on that occasion, they were actually initiated by Madhavendra Puri and into this Madhvacharya Sampradaya. And then Madhavendra Puri instructed them how to carry out the worship of Gopal. He was just sitting on this rock on the hill. But later, actually, there's this royal, this royal Kshatriya, he came. And he was very wealthy. And he built this beautiful, grand temple for Gopal to reside in. So then, actually there was another pastime of Madhavendra Puri. After 2 years, while he was resting, Gopal also appeared to him again in a dream and said to him, "My body temperature is still very, very high. Please bring sandalwood pulp from Malaya Hill and smear the sandalwood pulp over my body to cool me." The Malaya Hill is a place near Jagannath Puri. So, the deity Gopal was giving him this instruction. So Madhavendra Puri, he was just living, basically he was just like a Goswami. He was just living like a beggar. He had nothing. And he wasn't very strong, he hardly ate anything. But now by Krishna's arrangement, he had this beautiful palatial temple. He had 1,000 people coming every day to worship and get the darshan of beautiful Gopal. And he had so many disciples who were just ready just to do anything for him. But when Gopal said to him, "Go to Jagannath Puri, bring sandalwood back for me," immediately he just took that personally as a personal instruction. He could have got other people to do it or organised it. And of course, you have to understand that it wasn't if he could just go down to the local airport and jump on a plane, or local railway station and jump on a train and go to Jagannath Puri to get the sandalwood. he had to walk. And it's like 1,400 kilometers from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri. And he had to walk there, and he was just planning, I'm going to walk there alone. So he just took off. And it was a very difficult journey actually, and so many different obstacles on the way. But it said that he did not even once consider his personal inconvenience. He was not attached to anything but to pleasing Krishna. So this is said to be the real platform of renunciation. So after, of course, before he left, he made sure the deity worship was organised and taken care of. And then when he arrived in Shantipur, he stayed with Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya was so awestruck by just the love of Madhavendra Puri that he took initiation from him. And then Madhavendra Puri travelled to Orissa, to a village named Ramuna. This is where Lord Chaitanya is sitting right now, telling this whole story about Madhavendra Puri, where this Gopinath deity is. And when Madhavendra Puri saw that Gopinath deity, he was just overwhelmed with ecstatic love. He started chanting and dancing. But then later he sat down, he asked the Brahmana, what kind of food do you offer to this deity? So he was thinking, maybe if I learn what they do here, they have very beautiful worship here. Maybe if I learn what they do here, I can initiate this into my worship of Gopal. So the Brahmana told him, in the evening we offer 12 earthen pots of this special kheer, this nectarine kheer or sweet rice, which has been celebrated as the famous Gopinath kheer, Amrita Kelly. And everyone said, people in the whole world knew about this kheer. It was like, it just tasted like some kind of ambrosial nectar. So meanwhile, while they were talking, the Pujari brought the 12 pots of sweet rice into the deity room, put them on the altar. And Madhavendra Puri was thinking, if by chance someone brings me a small portion of that kheer, I will taste it. Then I'll prepare a similar prep for the pleasure of Gopal. And suddenly, the bell started ringing for the offering. I could hear the bell. Madhavendra Puri, immediately he just offered his obeisances, and he suddenly just left the temple. And he went to a secluded village and sat in a vacant marketplace there. And he was feeling so guilty, so ashamed of himself, that he was thinking about tasting that sweet rice before it was offered. No, Krishna is supposed to enjoy the sweet rice, the preparation first, but he was thinking, I know in Melbourne it used to be like that with korma. Sunday cooking, he used to have the whole temple in there cooking the Sunday feast. Sunday feast in Melbourne were just like over the top. But if anyone started talking about eating this feast, korma would just come down on them. You're thinking about eating the feast before it's even offered. He'd really bring everyone in line and get them to think, actually we're cooking this for Krishna, we're not cooking it for us. So he was so ashamed. He just, he was thinking about tasting that sweet rice before it was offered. And that night, that Pujari of Gopinath, that deity actually appeared to him in a dream and said, get up, go to the temple, open the deity room. I've hidden a pot of sweet rice behind the curtain there for Madhavendra Puri. And then Madhavendra Puri is sitting there in the vacant marketplace. Immediately the Pujari got up. Oh, the speaker's not working out there. Oh. And he found that pot. And he took it to the marketplace. And he was calling out, "May he, whose name is Madhavendra Puri, please come and take this pot of sweet rice that Gopinath has stolen for you." You are the most fortunate person in the three worlds. After a while, Madhavendra Puri, in great humility, came forward. He met the priest, and the priest explained to him about the dream. And Madhavendra Puri, he was just absorbed in ecstatic love when he ate that sweet rice. And then he washed out the pot. And actually he smashed that pot up into little pieces, and he wrapped it up in a cloth, and he took it with him. And every day he used to eat a little piece of that pot. But then he was thinking, if people find out about this pastime, how the deity hid the pot of sweet rice behind the curtain for me, great crowds of people are going to come. I'll become famous. And he didn't want to be recognised as being some special Paramahamsa Vaishnava. He just wanted to remain in a very ordinary position. So he left Varuna. And he went back to Jagannath Puri to get the sandalwood. But then also in Jagannath Puri, he was anxious to leave Jagannath Puri because people were honouring him so much and worshipping him. He didn't. This is the position of these very advanced devotees. They don't want all this fame and adoration. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, I recall, he said, "When I sit on this asana, I just feel like a dog sitting on the asana. And actually, it pains me to be able to just sit here and just receive all this adoration. But I painfully just tolerate it out of my service to my spiritual master." They don't like it, this thing. We hear about Jayananda Maharaj, Jayananda Prabhu. Whenever anyone would glorify him, he would just close his ears if he'd run away. He didn't want to hear. Actually, while I was in Jagannath Puri, Madhavendra Puri, he was telling the servants there of Lord Jagannath about his dream about Gopal. He wanted the sandalwood paste. That's one of the sandalwood. So these servants of Jagannath who were acquainted with the government officers of Puri, they had a meeting and they arranged to get all the sandalwood, and all this camphor was collected, and then they gave him one brahmana and one servant to help him carry the sandalwood back to Vrindavan. Almost 37 kilos of sandalwood. It's pretty heavy, like, imagine Madhavendra Puri carrying that on his own. But he had some people to help him. And of course it wasn't just down the road. They had to walk 1,400 kilometres with this sandalwood back to Vrindavan. And it was very dangerous, because sandalwood, very precious, very expensive. There's many dacoits and thieves on the road. So as they travelled to Vrindavan, they once again went through Ramuna, and they went to the Gopinath deity. See the Gopinath deity, get the darshan, and Madhavendra Puri and these two babus were dancing and chanting. And when Madhavendra Puri took rest that night, Gopal, appeared to him in another dream. And he said, no need to bring the sandalwood to Vrindavan. You can just get the sandalwood pulp in the camphor and smear it on Gopinath there in Ramuna. Because Gopinath and me are not different. Thus, just by smearing that camphor and sandalwood pulp on Gopinath, I'll be cooled here in Vrindavan. So he just stayed there. He just stayed there, and he went to the Pujaari and he explained for him this dream. And so every day he got the servant and the brahmana to grind the sandalwood, and they just smeared it over Gopinath, keeping cool. And simultaneously they were keeping Gopal cool in Vrindavan at the same time. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so he stayed there at that place, Madhavendra Puri, till all the sandalwood was gone. And then he went back to Jagannath Puri, and he stayed there for the Chatumasya, and then he went back to Vrindavan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was talking about this pastime at this temple, he was just speaking about the glories of Madhavendra. He was just overwhelmed. He just fell to the ground and said he had no control over himself, just thinking about Madhavendra Puri. And this just shows the affection that Krishna has, the Lord has, for his pure devotees. He just loves his pure devotees so much. That verse in the Bhagavad Gita, that I do not know anyone but them, and they do not know anyone but me. It's just when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground, Nityananda picked him up, put him on his lap to comfort him. And after some time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained consciousness, and he was crying, just thinking about Madhavendra Puri. He was exhibiting all static symptoms, and he got up and he just started chanting. Actually, Madhavendra Puri, also in that conversation where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking about, he was talking about the glories of Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri. They had this amazing friendship. Actually Madhavendra Puri would say, "Now I know that Krishna is merciful to me, for I have a friend like Nityananda." And out of spiritual love, just upon seeing each other, they would just both faint on the spot. And then when they regained consciousness, they would just embrace and weep, sometimes roll on the sand, sometimes chant and dance, exhibiting ecstatic symptoms of love for Krishna. And sometimes for days, just the two of them, Madhavendra Puri and Nityananda Prabhu, would just sit there and just discuss the pastimes of Krishna. And no one knew what that discussion was, only Krishna. And Madhavendra Puri, he always had this special prayer or song they used to sing. And it was just a manifestation of his deep feelings of separation from Krishna. He would sing, "O my Lord, O merciful Master, when shall I see you again? Because of not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. What shall I do now?" It's a mood of separation. Actually, one devotee, he asked Prabhupada, this is a very exalted position, this mood of separation from Krishna. Should we also feel separation from Krishna? Is it possible that we can also experience a separation? Prabhupada said, yes. Actually, even though we're not on that platform of the Goswamis or Madhavendra Puri, we should be thinking within our heart that, you know, Krishna is so far away in Goloka Vrindavan. And we're like way down here on this planet Earth. You know, trillions of light years away. But we want to be with him. We want to be in Goloka Vrindavan. We don't want to be here in this material world. And therefore we should feel the separation from Krishna, you know. We want to be there with him. We want to be in Goloka Vrindavan. You know, Krishna, he actually personally came down here from Goloka Vrindavan and exhibited all and created this complete picture of the spiritual world right here on planet Earth, where this pure love and devotion prevail. He came down here just to attract us to that spiritual world. He performed all these beautiful pastimes, and he wanted to teach us how we can enjoy with him on the spiritual platform in the spiritual world. He came to attract us. This material world is not your real home. Your real home is there, Goloka Vrindavan. That's your eternal home. You know, he came down to attract us and also to teach us the process by which we can wind up our affairs here in this material world, get free from all this material entanglement and develop our love and understanding of him so that we can get liberation from this reincarnation cycle and actually go back and just be with him forever and ever and ever in our eternal spiritual form where we can serve him directly. Jai Shri Madhavendra Puri ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Go Prem.